Well, hello, everyone. Good morning. Mm, Thank you so much, Chris, for the beautiful music and the music team. It just takes all of us to be in community. So many of us may have woken up this morning yearning for a different thing. Some of us, perhaps some peace, maybe some quiet, or just some rest. And today's talk is on coming home to our sacred center, because that is where peace resides. Hmm. So I think I lost my PowerPoint here. Give me a second here. Hmm. Here we go. All right, I am back. As I was saying, peace. Coming back. See, we always get the lesson that I need to talk about, right? So today's talk is on the inward journey, where our identity, our truth, our mishaps with Zoom doesn't matter. It's who we are, our truth, and our inner belonging already live. That's the sacred center. And it's not because we need to become anything different, but that we are remembering, simply remembering who we already are. So today's talk on homecoming is about ourselves. And as we affirm the indwelling presence of the divine, we know that presence does not live somewhere out there, right? It doesn't it's not waiting for us to earn it. Our source lives right in here, in the quiet chamber of our being. And it is the divine essence that channels in, through, from, and as us in every moment. So let's begin. Let's begin the sacred time together with a breath, one conscious breath, one moment of return. So I'm going to invite you to go ahead and let's breathe together as a community. Go ahead and inhale, and then we exhale. And with this breath, we simply arrive, not to fix, not to perform, but to remember, to return to the sacred meeting place within us all where spirit lives. And friends, your presence here is not an accident. That part of you that said yes to being here today is part that already knows. We're always guided, right? As the daily word of the day says. And even now, this moment, this very moment is holy. And this breath that we just took, that we continue to take moment by moment, this breath is enough. We each bring our own stories, our joys, our scars, our experiences. And still, we meet here exactly as we are. We come as we are. And here we go. Every one of us who has been told we're too much, that we're too sensitive, or that we're too expressive or too intense, too black sheepy. Ever heard of that word? Too black sheepy? I made that up. Maybe too loud or too quiet, too fat, too thin, or simply not good enough. Not spiritual enough, not masculine enough, not feminine enough, not anything enough. It's a bit much sometimes, right? So, friends, hear me now. You were never the problem, and your soul is not a mistake. Your tenderness, your heart, right here, sacred center, your heart is a portal to truth, and your heart knows the way, friends. We all know this, and sometimes we forget to embody it. So I'm here to remind you, your heart knows the truth. Your sacred anger, my friends, is a signpost. Your emotions are not liabilities. They are invitations. They are sacred invitations. So I'm going to share with you a time when I was told I was too much. And this is kind of my story. So, you know, I say a time, but it really isn't a moment in time. Um, it was decades of my life. And we've all experienced this in one way or another, right? So here's what I'm going to share with you. My amazing mother transitioned when I was 16 years old, and I had been on my own ever since. So many decades of that. And before that, I survived as a child refugee, 10 days stranded at sea. I almost died during that experience. Glad I didn't. I wouldn't be sitting here. So from a very, very early age, I carried this really deep longing to create a loving, soul aligned family of my own because I didn't really quite have that experience. So I'm of Chinese background, and in my traditional Chinese culture, the culture that my sisters and my mom and our ancestors were reared in, dating was not part of the script. You would meet someone once, twice, and then, okay, that's great. Let's get married. No questions, no exploration, just it seemed just duty, right? You weren't um, you weren't even considered an adult until you got married. That's part of the heritage and the custom of the Chinese. So that was a norm in my culture and of my upbringing. But something in me, a holy curiosity, let's say, needed to know more. So instead of following the cultural norm, I dated intentionally across backgrounds to understand myself and what I truly needed in love. It wasn't rebellion. I wasn't trying to rebel as a teenager or, post teenager in my 20s and 30s. It was actually soul searching. And many of us here are seekers, right? We're longing, we're searching. And my family didn't see it that way. They told me I was too much, too much. You date too much, too many people, too varied, too visible, too disruptive. And at one point, they even asked me to stop bringing people home to avoid being a bad example to my nieces and nephews. And friends, that hurt. Ouch. But I didn't stop because I knew that choosing myself wasn't selfish. It was against the grain, but it wasn't selfish. That knowing was deep within and it was sacred. And so finally, at age 32, I met my husband, love of my life, not by conforming, but by coming home to my truth. So that was the awakening for me. Being too much was the exact path that brought me home. And sometimes choosing yourself means disappointing the script that you were born into. I'm going to repeat that. Sometimes choosing yourself means disappointing the script you were born into. But that is how we come home to our sacred center, our holy center. Our story, guys, is really sacred. The very parts of you that were judged, maybe the parts of you that carry the key to someone else's healing. Because we do the healing together, right? Carl Jung here has a quote that says, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. So we get to choose over and over and over again. And so, as I said, coming home to yourself is not rebellion. It, my friends, is reverence. It is the spiritual path of authenticity where nothing is wasted. Not your heartbreak, not your tears, not your detours, not even the years of redirection when you thought you were lost. And those of us who have been lost before, you probably know what I'm talking about. And friends, you're not behind, you're becoming. There's a beautiful quote that I kind of carry, right? Because I remember it so well. Not all those who wander are lost. That's from Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. And in this community, many of us are not just wanderers, we're seekers. We're seeking the divine, which incidentally dwells right here, in, through, from, and as us in every moment. So no longer do we need to seek out there. We just got to find the peace within, get grounded in that divine center. And the divine doesn't measure our worth by our productivity or our gender or how many times we've gotten it right. The divine sees only you, us, our inherent wholeness, that Christ light within. So I'm going to share another story of that for me, the striving, right? So I've lived in many places over my life. Such a blessing to be able to do that, to have that experience. And of all the places that I have ever lived, Manhattan, New York City is on the top of that list. So I was living in New York City during 9/11. And after living through 9/11, I was in total survival mode, hyperproductive, always bracing, constantly striving. I didn't realize how loud my inner world had become until I landed on Maui years later. Yes, I moved to a diametrically opposite place from the hustle and bustle of the city to quiet, pristine Maui. And at first the silence was jarring. I couldn't sit still, but the pace of the island was so slow that it forced me. It didn't force me. I had a choice, but I took the invitation. Unnatural as it is, I took the invitation to slow down. And slowly the Aina, the land, began to teach me. The ocean, I realized, didn't rush. The wind didn't force, and the earth wasn't in a hurry. And I realized, in this stillness, learning to be still, neither was my soul. And so for me, that was my turning point. That's when everything shifted. I stopped performing. I stopped running. I stopped needing to prove myself. I stopped hustling, surviving, pushing through. And for the first time, I allowed myself to simply be, not for anyone else, but for me. And that's where I began to return truly to my sacred center, not in the doing, not in the striving, not in the productivity, but simply in the beingness itself. And incidentally, I found unity while I was on Maui. So life met me at my level of consciousness, and I was sure ready at that time for sacred community. And so my soul wasn't in a hurry. It was waiting for me to listen. And when I stopped to listen, it met me where I was. Okay. So, friends, when rejection stings or when we shut down, our instinct is to armor up. That sounds familiar, right? It's the fight, flight, freeze, fawn symptom, right? To armor up, to protect ourselves. So here's a curious question. What if we didn't? What if we didn't armor up? What if, we feel rejected or not enough or hurt or unseen or whatever? What if instead of armoring up, we softened up, we surrendered to it and stayed present to it? What if when the world tells us no, we stop going into our story and instead we ask ourselves, what's here for me to learn? What is my next cut as a spiritual warrior? How does this, against the grain and everything, help me to awaken to the truth of my being, that indwelling spirit in me as an expression in every breath that I take? How do I live up to that? So, friends, holy curiosity is not just an idea. It's a spiritual practice, and it's, as most spiritual principles, it's elusive. You see it. If you don't write it down, it's fleeting. It just goes away. So this idea of curiosity, if you take this into prayer this week and just get really curious, this curiosity, this spiritual practice will turn judgment into inquiry. It creates space where before there was simply self-protection, balling up, walls up, closed energy, unavailable because we are so afraid to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be in pain. And friends, in that space is where grace enters. We're making room for it. And so, my friends, to our LGBTQ plus family, to anyone who has ever felt unworthy, unseen, unloved, misunderstood, labeled, know this: you are not broken. You are not a problem to be solved. You are the beloved. I do not believe that God withholds love. That's my belief. What's yours? I believe that God is love, and therefore everyone operates from that indwelling source energy of God within. And after all, it is our second principle, right? Each one of us is the individualized expression of God, and therefore our true nature is divine. We are love in form. We are love in expression. We are love expressing right here, right now. So I'm pausing for you to really receive the truth, that truth in your heart. So I want to do something together. I want to invite you to say, repeat after me: I am the beloved. So I'm going to say it, and then you're going to repeat it either aloud or to yourself, wherever you are. So take a deep breath in, close your eyes. I am the beloved. Repeat: I am the beloved. Say that again, and this time open your heart to really receive it. I am the beloved. Repeat: I am the beloved. Beautiful. Okay. So when one of us comes home, we all rise. Now, even if we don't fully understand each other's paths, even if our identities, our beliefs, our pronouns are different, we can still walk together in love. We can still walk each other home. Ram Dass says we are all just walking each other home. And in community, it gets so beautiful because we know it's evidence we're not alone. We're never alone. But now, with other souls around us, it's evidence that we're not, right? So you see this healing, it isn't individuated, it's in community. This is not just about our own sacred homecoming, it's about our collective awakening. And when you come home to yourself, friends, it invites me to do the same. It gives me permission. That's sacred. That's community. And that's the divine in motion. In fact, what each and every single one of us are. And so, my friends, as we close, I invite you to place a hand over your heart and let's get some integration. You know, here in this community, we like to explore our thoughts and our principles and our concepts, and I really love to bring integration. So as you bring your hand over your heart, as you're called to, breathe into this center, feel the truth of your being, and softly say to yourself, the words are on the slide: I am whole, I am holy, I am home. Okay, so let's do that again. I am whole, I am holy, and I am home. And so I invite you to gently open your eyes if you're in community. If you're in Zoom, turn on your camera and say this to each other. Maybe look at each other in the eyes and say, I see that truth in you. Together, I see that truth in you. Breathe that in. Beautiful. So friends, the love you seek is not out there. It is already looking through your eyes. It is already home in you. It is your sacred center. May you walk from here not just inspired, but remembered. And may you know with every step you take, you're not lost. You are home. Amen. Okay, friends, I wanted to just thank you so much for sharing this sacred space with me. And just a word, as an ordained unity minister, my heart has always belonged to this community. And yet I've always known that my calling reaches beyond the walls of our sacred community, right? So the message doesn't change, only the languaging a little bit, because it's all ministry, and it's all remembering, practicing the remembrance of that one presence and one power in many, many ways. So I invite you to walk with me as I carry this message into the wider world. You've seen the website there. It's a homecoming kit. I created a free gift for you in mind. It's almost ready, but so it's almost ready. So when you sign up, it might take just a day or a week or so, but it'll keep you in the loop about upcoming talks and reflections and resources to support your journey in coming home to your sacred center. So now let's take today's message and go within for a moment, grounding always in our sacred breath. So taking a deep breath, release, clear your mind, and allow space for spirit to remind us of just how sacred this life is and how blessed we are.